Welcome back to Leadership Roles, where we believe leadership isn't just a role, it's a way of life. Whether you're leading a team, a community, or simply leading yourself, we're here to help you unlock the rules to lead your life with purpose and impact. I'm Nick and joined by my co host, Marnie Stockman, and together we co authored Lead It Like Lasso. And we're thrilled to have Rob Elia on the show today.
Yeah, we are. So, Rob, welcome. Rob and I first met when I joined the team at Schoology. You were already there. So, things I know of Rob: educator at heart, relationship builder by nature, and a connector truly in every sense of the word. A little bit of his background: he's been a teacher, coach, department chair, anti-bullying specialist, and now is titled as Director of Partnerships, Podcasting, and Social Media Coordination for the New Jersey Association of Educational Leaders. I'll let you give your job title too. It was a lot to squeeze in. He's a two-time girl dad, former county coach of the year, and someone who really knows how to blend passion for people with a love of innovation in ed tech. So we're excited to catch up, swap some stories, talk leadership through the lens of education and coaching and connection. So Rob, thanks for coming.
Thank you for having me, and I really appreciate the intro.
So
Uh,
also, can you tell me your work title?
yeah, I'll add to that. So, on top of my support for NJAL, I
Yeah.
actually also work full time for a company called PureTech, and there I'm a partnership executive. My other full time job is full time spouse, husband, and like you said, two-time girl dad. So,
Yeah.
very busy with a lot of things going on.
Yeah, no shortage of work there. And parenting, we always say, is a crucial leadership.
Yeah, maybe the most
You know,
important job
yeah.
out there.
Yeah.
So yeah, that absolutely is more than full time. So a quick icebreaker questions: first concert, best concert.
Oh, wow. All right, so first one that I guess I like as a teenager, where I start counting at that point, was
Yeah.
Britney Spears.
Britney
Oh,
Spears.
okay. That
Britney Spears.
definitely.
It was awesome, by the way. um, I was maybe like 18, 19 years old. My friend had like 100 level tickets, and so I wasn't too far from the stage, and I could swear she smiled at me, and
Yeah.
I was stoked. Best concert, I would have to say Foo Fighters circa 2021, Madison Square Garden, when things were coming out of COVID and things were opening up. It was phenomenal. It was long set, rock in the house. I love concerts inside arenas instead of stadiums. It's like enclosed. So, I mean, it was rocking and roaring and, back to be at an event. It was
Yeah.
awesome.
Fun little fact, the first concert I ever went to was in Madison Square Garden. I saw Rush back in way back when. But yeah, that's awesome. Okay, easier one. Coffee or tea?
Neither.
Oh,
Ah.
I like that. Any caffeine? Do we need any type of caffeine at all? Or
Yeah, you know what? So I have sort of like a healthy, like powdered mix
Yeah.
that's got caffeine, hydration, stuff like that. So certainly need the caffeine, but I've never bought into coffee, and I don't really like hot tea like that. So neither one.
Deal. Dog or cat?
Dog.
all right, book type: paper, audio, or ebook?
Ebook.
And
Certainly ebook.
leadership, art or science?
I love that question. I think it's both. And my response to that, I actually had it a little bit better rehearsed than what I'm thinking about now. I think it's a science, and the folks that do it the best make it come across like an art.
Hmm.
Oh, I like that answer. I like that answer. All right, so let's get into it. Speaking of leadership, we just left off there. In our book, we talk about the fact that leadership is life because we believe that everyone is a leader. They should be leading themselves, their families. Curious about your perspective, and does that ring true for you, or do you see it a different way? And tell us about how leadership plays out in your life.
Yeah, I do agree with that notion, with that mindset. I think naturally, as a parent, you're automatically in a leadership role. What you decide to do with it from there is really up to that individual. Um, but it certainly resonates. I certainly agree. I think also in your profession, you may not have a leadership title, but you do lead your role. I think you should have ownership of your work, right? And I think you should also live with intention to have a quality life, and all of those take, pretty strong leadership skills if you're doing it right. So yeah.
So you and I were chatting a while back, and you told a great story of coaching as it tied to leadership. So will you talk about that some?
Yeah, for sure. So, I have roughly over 20 plus seasons as a high school coach, and that varied between head coach for a few years, assistant varsity coach for the bulk of the others. And so, one of the programs that I was a part of was at Milburn High School in Milburn, New Jersey, both the boys and girls tennis team. And so, in terms of like accolades and stuff, they both were superb programs, but the girls team uh, during my duration there was on a 6-year run of a 6-time tournament of championship title. And what that means in New Jersey is that you have different like sections based on your school size, and then that leads up to across the state, but within the same school size for it's called groups. And then from there, they take the winner of every group and make a mini tournament called the Tournament of Champions. And so the program won that 6 times in a row, meaning they were the best team in New Jersey, number one across the board, 6 years in a row. And during that span, it was a win-loss record of 150 wins, 0 losses. And when you think about high school over a 6-year span,
Yeah,
none of the kids that started with you the first
right.
year,
That's what I
you have
find amazing.
turnover and et cetera. And so
Mm.
when it comes to building like a program, building a culture, being part of a winning culture, it was very eye-opening. Obviously, we had superb talent, but that doesn't always guarantee
Mm-mm.
culture or accolades like that. So
How much of
That-
that culture was identifying them young and feeding them into the school system? Is that it at all, or was it all kind of once you got them, you got them?
So at the high school level, and for me being what's called out of district, meaning I didn't teach there, I just arrived there at
Hmm.
roughly 3 p.m. to start coaching. I wasn't heavily involved with that feeder program of a sort. We would do during spring break sort of like a kids clinic for
Yep.
youngsters within the town to come and take some lessons and be part of like a camp. Tennis as a sport, I say, is a very like family driven sport. Folks that play it, kids that play it, it's usually because their mom or dad plays it too and kind of like got them into it. So you don't see it quite like a football program or a basketball program where it's like a town movement. Tennis is
yeah.
very
Yep.
much like a family movement. But with that being said, what you do with them when they come in as ninth graders, fresh on a high school team, and how they grow over time is certainly part of that team culture.
Yeah, yeah. So let's talk about the culture for a second. And I've heard you say before that a lot of your team success, it wasn't driven by that win at all cost mentality or mindset. So tell us what that mindset was, and how did that show up on a daily basis?
Yeah, you know what? I'll start by going back just a little bit before that. So the previous teams that I worked for and coached, other high schools, we had some pretty great players. There's one that comes to mind that was a 2-time state champion and just superior as an individual and a person. He's the one kid on that team that really stood out. And then you're managing, the rest of the talent on the team. And there always seemed to be just a natural focus on winning. And that's being the goal because you want to prove yourself as a team, as a coach, as a program. And that just seems to be like evaluated by wins and losses. And
Yep.
when I got to Milburn, now this was already a very strong program, legendary program. And when I got to see how they handle themselves and how they conduct business, I was pretty surprised by the fact that there wasn't this huge spotlight on winning,
Win, win,
right?
win. Yeah.
Winning is just a byproduct of doing everything else right up to that point. And so if you're always making that end goal just a focus, you're forgetting to take those little micro steps and that really recipe of what it takes to succeed. That doesn't always have to be winning, right? Like wins are great, but if you play terribly, is that really teaching you anything? And sometimes you learn more and they'll develop more character from your losses. And so this was a program that naturally just had very talented players, extremely good, legendary coach. And the culture of that team was, focus on attitude and effort. Do your best. 1% better every day. Trust your teammates. Support each other. If you do all those things that we cover in practice and you're coachable and you compete, we really drove that level of compete at your best level. That's really all that we ask for as staff. And it really resonated. I think it reduced a lot of pressure that a youngster might feel when it goes into like those bigger matches or bigger competitions. And we would tell the kids, we're not worried about winning or losing or going to the next round. We want you to go out there and compete to the best of your level. And we're still going to love you when you come off the court. We're still going to support you. We would say win, lose, go home and eat. No matter what, you're going to go home and eat.
Right. That doesn't change that outcome.
Yeah.
So I feel like there's some leadership muscle from coaching that maybe you didn't expect to use later in life in, your world in ed tech or work. But what do you take from, from coaching that parallels work for you?
Yeah. I saw the effect of grit and leadership and teamwork, both as a coach and a leader. And then also that's something that just athletics taught me as well too, when I was a student athlete. And so, I got to see the influence you can have over someone and how to also be mindful of that, right? And be mindful of what you say and how you say it. And that's very much like great tutelage for like a new teacher, a novice teacher. What you say to youngsters goes a long way. It carries a lot of weight. They look at you as an authority figure, and the other thing that I noticed over time as a coach and a teacher is that I think one of the most critical traits you can instill in a youngster is having confidence. I've often seen confidence being a huge roadblock to not just youngsters, right? Like we could talk about adults, we could talk about anyone, but confidence being a barrier to others having the success that they have the talent and skill for, right? So when they go out there to compete for that last point, that last shot, that final game, having the confidence to go out there and just execute and trust that you can do it. And the folks that aren't confident, that's where you kind of see that maybe tail off and they don't hit the critical shot, right? Or the last second shot, etc. So I think it all starts with confidence.
So it's interesting. We were talking yesterday on a webinar about confidence and how students really need to understand themselves in order to have that confidence, because then they know they're showing up as the best version of themselves. When they've made the shot, to your point about grit, 1,000 times, they know they can make the shot, right? So they can be confident because I can do this. It's not, you're not asking them to do something they don't know. They're aware of their skills, their strengths, etc. And they can then deliver. I couldn't agree more on that.
Yeah. So why don't we switch gears, because we're talking a lot about your leadership approach. Can you think of, Rob, is there someone that comes to mind that led you well? And can you think of some of the attributes that maybe they had that you appreciated or still lead you?
So I'd have to spotlight the head coach of that program. So I was the assistant varsity coach at that time, and the head coach's name is Bill Wickenheiser, and Coach Wick for short. So he's taught there for almost like 2 decades now. He's coached there for a very long time too, and he had this pulse to him and this approach and this calming effect typically of coaching an elite program like that. And so not just when I got there to see the culture of the program, but also how he treated his fellow coaches. And his approach was that we are all co-coaches, even though he has the title of head coach. And of course, there's some good and bad that goes with that. A lot of extra effort he has to give. But, he would tell the players that the 3 of us, there was another person at that time too, are all their coaches. And so that, and like I mentioned before a little bit about the culture of the team and the lack of focus on winning, it really opened up some perspective on what's important when coaching and building a program. I'll give you a little bit of an example of the effect of a program like that, the effect of a leader. We had a young female player. She was a freshman at the time, on the JV squad, ended up getting sick. She ended up with cancer, and she had to have her leg amputated, sadly. Um, Survived it, came back, etc. And she was out for at least a year, just out of school, out of
Sure.
everything. And she came back in what would be her third year of high school, really her sophomore year now at this point, with a prosthetic leg on her right
Mm-hmm.
leg. And she came back. She was there for the first day of practice on the court. And for her, it was just like such a monumental event. And she said, this is something that I strived for, that kept me going through this process, is to come back on the court and be part of the team. It kept me going when times are really tough.
That's awesome.
Good coaches
That's
can do
awesome.
that. I don't think I've ever almost cried on this podcast, but now,
It was a heartwarming, very
yeah,
heartwarming, across the board. We're super
of
happy
course.
for her with the fight that she
Yeah.
led and came back. And, I think those are standout programs for sure. Standout. It goes beyond the wins and losses.
Oh,
Yeah.
absolutely. So maybe that's part of the answer of my next question. But what's something that you used to think mattered in leadership, but now you're like, nope, nah, that's not how I think about it now.
Yeah, I love this question. I think it comes back to always having or thinking you have to have the right and immediate answer out of the gate,
Mm,
right? So it is okay to take a moment to think, to gather input, to make a calculated decision. And it's okay to say, I don't know. I'm going to dig deeper, right? I mean, Marnie, we would say that to students, right? Like if we ever got stumped as a teacher, we'd say, that's a great question. Why don't you find out the
right.
answer to that, right? So it's okay. And I don't want to say that like deflect, but it's okay to take your time and to not feel pressure that you have to have a quick, immediate, and right response every time.
So I'm curious, what content did you teach?
Health and phys ed.
Okay, so I taught math. So it wasn't until I'd been out of the classroom for 20 years and went and covered for Calc 2 that I was really allowed to say, like, I'm going to have to go do some work on this because otherwise, like,
That's
like in math, we're talking algebra 2. You better be the one with the answer, lady.
you're right. You're right.
Yeah,
Math is the one caveat. Yeah, you need to know the
yeah.
answer.
Yeah. And even then I was like, okay, I'm going to call on the smart kid. We're going to work through this together, but I can't act like I don't know what I'm doing.
That's funny.
Yeah.
I do love that answer though, and Marnie's heard this before. That was the single biggest turning point in my career when I entered leadership. I was really struggling until I had a mentor tell me it's okay to admit that you don't know what you don't know, and it of course it ends the byproduct of that is it builds trust with the people that work around you, right? Because they always can sniff it out and tell when you're making stuff up, and that is an instant remedy for failure, in my opinion. So
Yeah. I often talk with the podcast that I run through NJAL, the New Jersey Association of Educational Leaders. It's called the Leaders Edge podcast. I have an interview a lot of central office leaders, a lot of superintendents, principals, folks of that type of role. And a similar question that comes up, is this. And the other response I hear pretty often is, when they make that transition from teaching into leadership, is to they're doing everything, right? Like they
mm-hmm.
feel like they always have to do everything no matter what, and not give up a little bit and let others develop and make mistakes. So if I had to give a second answer to that, it'd be something like that. Yeah.
Yeah.
When I first became the math supervisor for the school system, the assistant superintendent came up to me and said, Marnie, like, just so you know, if you can't possibly do K through 12 math on your own, so you're going to have to figure out how to delegate to others, right? How to build your confidence in them and the trust, both ways so that everybody can work together for this, because this job is just too big for one person, but we only have the budget for one person. So figure out
So you're it.
how to get others to work with you. Right. So yeah, that was definitely one of those things that came to mind.
So I'm curious, just based on the discussion so far, Rob. We talked a lot about your experience in that the tennis program. Did you grow up playing tennis? How did you get involved with that sport specifically?
Yeah, I grew up, I want to say I picked up a racket around like the 8, 9-year-old, 10-year-old range. My brother's 3 years younger than me, so just close enough in age where we can go
Where
outside
you
and
could
play
beat
play
him
together.
all the time until you
And
were older.
and that too. My dad played, right? So going back to like that family movement for a sport like this, my dad would go out on Saturday mornings with a friend of his. So he had rackets, we had tennis balls in the garage kind of thing, and my brother and I were just always outside. We were 90s kids, outside, driveway, street, playing every sport, and tennis was just one of them. And yeah, I took to it. I wasn't stellar tennis player. In fact, I got much better actually when I started coaching after
Yeah.
college. And so yeah, I learned the sport pretty rapidly. I learned a deep level of the sport. Early on, I got to coach that one player I mentioned, former state champion. He was a top 20 in the country, and so I got to see a level of tennis that most folks don't get to see on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah. How cool is that? So we ask all of our guests, and we do this at the end. So hopefully, it may have been covered already. But we ask all of our guests, what is one leadership rule that you feel like everyone needs to know? Um, and if we were to, we commonly phrase this: if there was the Rob Elia rule, what would it be in terms of leadership?
Great question. Do you mind if I give two?
Oh, you can.
Is that okay?
Two is acceptable,
All
100%.
right.
Two-time girl
Uh,
dad, two-time
two,
rule maker, sure.
There you go. All right. Okay. So for me, the first one is I think you have to give people enough space to make mistakes and learn on their own. And easy to say, really hard to do. Um,
Mm.
I see it on a day-to-day basis, even as a parent. How often you see your youngster again. I don't know if you folks have any more young ones, but if you see your youngster struggling to tie their shoe, right, and it's like, oh, just give me that. I'm gonna do it real quick because we're in a rush, or I just don't want to see you struggle, right? So it's a conscious effort of like, let me pull back. She needs to see and struggle and get through it, and all the traits that come along with that. I think that's number one for me. Is give folks enough space to make mistakes. And then the second one, which is also a pillar of our program too, is that decisions should never be personal, right? We would have parent meetings at the beginning of every season, and we would talk about things like playing time and who's in, who's out, et cetera, et cetera. And no decision like that is ever personal.
Yeah.
It's business. It's for the sake of the
Yeah.
team, the best interest of the team. And so, we would urge and ask that parents arrive for a game, and because tennis, there's no substitutions. It's either you're on the court or you're not, right? And so parent that rallies grandma and grandpa too, and they come to the court, and their son or daughter is a routine player in a spot, and they arrive and they don't happen to be playing that day. Well, it's not a personal decision. We had to make a decision as a team and as coaches to sub in somebody to play that match for various reasons. And so
Yeah.
it's never a personal. It's never personal.
Yeah, I love both of those, and I think you also included a kind of a hidden third one, which is setting expectations. Right, you set the expectations with the parent right out of the gate, um, which is, I know my son, so involved with sports growing up that it was always easier when the coaching staff set the expectations out of the gate.
Hmm.
So
And we would ask that then both parents and player would be the biggest cheerleaders out there.
Mm.
yeah,
It's
yeah,
for whatever reason you're not in that starting role. It could be game style. It could be you need a break. It could be 100 degrees out and we know that you cramp. Um, so if we make a substitution, we ask that you be the biggest supporter. It's not easy for the kid that's coming in, right, to cover that, to think, hey,
Right.
I want to
And
play,
have
give my
someone,
best,
yeah,
right? But my teammate like is just livid right now, and
yeah,
and so that's
yeah,
not a good team trait either. So be the biggest cheerleader.
yeah. That's a good one.
so what I loved about this conversation that we had, it's we don't often kind of drill into sports leadership, but it's amazing how applicable all of the concepts that you talk about are in the real world, right outside of sports, whether it's education or corporate America. Um, Everything is spot on. I think it's a great way to frame it through the lens of sports, and I certainly appreciate we both appreciate you coming on. So we'd love for you to share with our audience how folks can find you, and who do you like to work with, do business with, anything you'd like to share at all, Rob.
Sure. Yeah. So I think the best way to find me is LinkedIn. I'm pretty active on LinkedIn. You can find me as Rob Elia, and that's last name Elia. I work with a company called PureTech Group, and we do audio-visual lighting renovations for K to 12 and higher ed institutions. So we renovate things like auditoriums, theaters, TV studios, things of that sort. So I'm often connecting and talking with a lot of district leadership as well too. And then the other space, like I mentioned, my podcast that I support NJAL with is called Leaders Edge. So if you search on Spotify or Apple, probably easier to just search NJAEL. That should pop up, and
Yeah, thankfully
you could
that
hear
one's
more
not
about
repeated
this.
a lot. Yeah.
Yeah. So
Absolutely, we'll put all those in the show notes. So thanks so
awesome.
much, Rob. We appreciate you joining us. This has been a great conversation.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Marnie. Always great to talk to you again
Oh
too.
yeah, absolutely.